All right, welcome everyone. I'm Emily Morgan. I'm here today with Brendan Hester. He is a client of ours and a friend, and he runs a company that provides human capital management, which means a lot of different things. He does a lot of really interesting work. His company is called ePay. And I know Brendan through the EOS community in particular. And today we're going to be talking about something he shared with me last week is that businesses are leaving billions in unclaimed employee retention credits. And so we're going to talk about what that means and how to take advantage of that as a business owner. But first, welcome, Brendan.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a little bit about your background just to provide some context. So Brendan has been in the human capital management space since the early 90s. He founded ePay in 2007, which I founded my business in 2007. So we have that in common. And his goal was to provide an exceptional customer experience while addressing his industry's slow adoption of technology. And that vision really led ePay to become one of the top payroll and HCM providers. He's an alum from University of Miami. He's an avid golfer and won the Massachusetts Amateur Championship in 2001 and loves to spend time with his wife and two sons. So welcome, Brendan.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And it was kind of funny when we first met through that business networking. I was like, hey, I'm actually a client of yours. And that was my implementer or my integrator, Kathy, had hooked me up with Joe from your team. And now shout out to Mary and Brianna because they're my virtual assistants, but they're really way more than that. They're really a part of our team. They're actually helping us right now with our Christmas party. So we really appreciate the services that your company provides. It really helps me to stay accountable and on track. So it's awesome.
Well, that's our vision. So glad to hear it. So, okay, educate us. What are employee retention credits and what does that actually mean for employers?
Yeah, I love it. Like, let's get right to it, right? Let's get to the heart of the matter. What does this really mean? And if the employer is eligible, it means that in 2020 and 21, they can get up to $26,000 per employee if they're eligible. So what that means is if I've got 10 employees, that's 260,000. If I have 20, that's up to 520,000. If I have 100 employees, that's up to $2.6 million. So there's a lot of money out there for employers.
That's a ton of money. So I would imagine lots of businesses are poised to take advantage of this from their taxes.
Yeah, so that's the interesting part is that there are so many businesses out there that don't even realize that this money is available. A week or two ago, we did some work for a client and they had no idea about employee retention credits. We were able to get them $800,000 worth of employee retention credits. So one of the things in the new legislation that just came out with the infrastructure bill is as part of that, when the legislators were going through that legislation, they were looking back at previous legislation. They were looking at employee retention credits. And what came out of that is employee retention credits they had through the course of the legislation, which I'll briefly talk about in a second. They allocated about $85 billion to employee retention credits. And as of the middle of July, only 15 to 20 billion had been used for employee retention credit by employers. So it was vastly undersubscribed by 65 billion. Now I'm sure that there's been some money since that time that has been allocated, but for the whole part, that's where employers aren't really getting it. It goes back to how this thing was rolled out and the legislation. So I'll kind of give you a kind of a really brief history of the legislation. It started with the CARES Act in March of 2020. And the CARES Act, as most employers know, put out the PPP loan. And that's really where everybody focused on. And it's funny that what someone described the PPP as a plane being built in midair.
Yeah.
And one of the things is like this legislation came out really fast. And what, for people that don't understand the legislation part of the world, typically, legislation happens and then it goes through a guidance period, and it usually takes like, 4 to 8 weeks to 12 weeks. They were getting this out in record time, 2 and 3 and 4 weeks. So it's unbelievable how quickly they got this out. So the CARES Act started, but when the CARES Act started with PPP, employee retention credits came out and was available, but you could not use it. You were excluded from using ERC if you used a PPP loan. So most employers totally put it aside, and most employers did not. I only had one client that took advantage of employee retention credits when they came out. Fast forward to December 27, 2020, the Consolidated Appropriations Act came out, and that completely flipped this thing. So when that legislation came out, it said, hey, employers, you can utilize employee retention credits even if you got a PPP loan. And so at that point, we realized, holy smokes, there's an opportunity here. Now, you can't use the same dollars that you use for PPP on employee retention credits, which we can talk about in a little bit, but it really kind of opened things up. And then it was further expanded. There was legislation signed in March, American Rescue Plan, that brought in this thing called business recovery startups, where they can actually get in the third and fourth quarter this year, companies that have under $1 million in gross revenue can get $100,000 in the third and fourth quarter, up to $100,000. So that brought another wave in. It also brought in universities and colleges and medical offices. Basically, government entities can't take advantage of it, but then they made exceptions with the American Rescue Plan. And then the recent legislation that was signed, which is the infrastructure bill, it actually moved for most employers. It moved the end date from 12/31 of this year back to 9/30. That was kind of the big thing that happened with this legislation. But still, these recovery startup businesses can take advantage of it in both the third and fourth quarter. So it's been an interesting ride, as all of us know. But this particular thing, and I think it started at the beginning with the March legislation, where employers just put it to the side because they were so focused on PPP, and they really haven't picked up the ball after to see if they can actually get some credits now that they can utilize both the PPP and the employee retention credits.
Wow. So if I own a business, so how do I qualify to take advantage of these credits?
Sure. There are two ways to qualify. One would be a drop in your gross receipts for a particular quarter, and then the other would be a full or partial suspension of your operation. So let's first talk about the drop in gross receipts. So what you need to do is look at, if we're looking at, as an example, 2020. You need to compare a particular quarter in 2020 to the same quarter in 2019. And if you had a drop in gross receipts or revenue by 50% or more, you would qualify. So as an example, I did $100,000 in revenue in Q2 of 2019. In Q2 of 2020, my revenue is $50,000 or less, you would qualify. And one of the really interesting parts of the legislation is in the wording of it and how it's applied, is if you qualify in Q2 of 2020, you actually automatically qualify for Q3 of 2020. Because what happens is you would come out, hopefully you would come out of your revenue slide in Q3 of 2020, but even when you come out of your revenue slide in Q3 of 2020, you don't come out of eligibility until the first day of the following quarter, which would actually be the first day of Q4. So that's one of the things that some customers miss. So that's one way. Now in 21, of course, they changed the rules up, and the drop in revenue would be 20%. So under the same example, we would look at Q2 of 2019 as an example, $100,000 in revenue. In Q2 of 2021, my drop in revenue would need to be $80,000 or less to qualify. Same rules apply. If I qualify, let's say my revenue is $78,000, I would also automatically qualify for Q3. And then depending on how I do in Q3, I may come out of it for Q4, depending on revenue. So that's one way of qualifying. The other is this full or partial suspension of your operation. And that really, you have to kind of get into the details of that. There's been 10,000 plus government orders. So if you've got a government order, whether it's city, state, local, federal, that has you partially suspended, it could be a drop in your capacity limitations. You aren't able to do your work within your company because of this full or partial suspension. And what they did as part of the same legislation in December that flipped this thing is they talk about this nominal part, what this nominal definition. So was your business not more than nominally affected, or was more than a nominal portion of your business affected by a full or partial suspension? So these are some of the details that we get into with our clients on their qualification, because it could be a situation where they do qualify, but maybe the portion of the business that they qualify for isn't more than a nominal part, and what the IRS defines that as nominal as 10%. So we get into those details with clients and work through that.
Very interesting. So let's say we qualify. How do we go ahead and claim that money?
Yeah, so the vehicle for claiming it would be the 941 return. And so what we've done with our clients is we got the word out really early in 21 when this thing changed. And we were able to get money for clients through our normal 941 procedure, where we submit our 941 electronically. And as part of that, we're submitting the credit. And they were able to get their money back in 3 to 5 weeks, which is awesome. If you go by, if you can't do that as part of the 941, which at this point is basically the ship has sailed, the only vehicle is an amended 941 return. That's the only vehicle to be able to do this. And unfortunately, that process takes longer. So it's a manual entry on the 941, submit to the IRS. And then because of the current IRS backlog, we're seeing it being about a 3 to 6 month turnaround for companies to get those refunds in. Now, the IRS is throwing a ton of resources at this, and they're training, they're hiring. We're talking to the IRS on a daily basis. We have a monthly call with them. So they're really working hard to try to get behind this backlog. And we've actually seen that 3 to 6 months shrink a little bit. So it's more like the 3 to 4 month time frame. So it is improving, but that's really the only conduit for actually getting this money.
So the employer just keeps getting checks? Like, that seems too good to be true.
Yeah, true. And I get that from when we start talking about the numbers, and a lot of times the numbers will closely mirror what they got in PPP, and they're like, wow, how is this even possible? Like, is this true? Is this real? And it is. And in this part of this stimulus, it was to certainly retain employment and jobs and certainly bridge the gap through this pandemic. But the Joint Commission, one of the big things that employers don't realize is that this was put in place for employers to expand and grow their business. So this money is really put out there so that they can get their business to the next level. And we're seeing that happen, and that's exciting.
Cool. So if as a business, like, what kind of things do I need to do to prove that I qualify for this employee retention credit?
Yeah, that's a big one. And the biggest thing I can say there is document. You have to go through this information. You know, number one, how do I qualify? And then documenting the state mandate or the government mandate. It doesn't have to be state, it could be city or local. You can have your local health board come in and shut you down, and that could be a qualifying factor. You need to document that. You need to document, number of employees you have. That's one of the things that in 2020, to get an unpaid wages, you have to have 100 full-time or less employees. And that piece of right there, there's so many layers to this. When we get into the details with our clients, the 100 full-time employees, a business out there that says, well, I've got 200 employees or 150 employees, so I don't qualify. Well, hold on. 100 full-time employees means you have an employee that works 130 hours in a month. If they work, that would be one or more. That would be one full-time employee. If they work less than that, 129 or less, if you will, they count as zero. So we have clients that have 250 employees, but because they're such a large part-time volume, they only have 65 full-time employees per the IRS definition. So you've got to document, if you were the employee level, not for 2020 it was 100, and for 2021 it's 500, and that's on paid wages. So if you're above those, that still doesn't mean you don't qualify. There is no size limit. When you're above the 100 for 2020 and 500 for 21, you actually can still get employer retention credits, but it is for those wages you paid when the employee was not providing services. So you realized, hey, they're probably going to be out for a month or so, but I don't want to lay them off. I'm going to keep them on payroll. I'm going to continue to pay their health benefits. Those would actually be qualified wages. So when we get into these details with the clients, and then we put together this documentation. So all of the things that are documented, the 941s that were sent in, if the employer was an aggregated employer, so a single employer, that's an important piece of it as well. And so we would put this documentation package together because you have to retain the documentation for 4 years in case of an IRS exam. And what we do as a business is we're standing right there with our clients. If that exam were to come, to go through all of the documentation of how they qualified and what those eligible wages were. And we do this when we go through it, it's a check date by check date layout of exactly what was claimed. And the big part there, especially in whether it's PPP, restaurant revitalization, or any of these other federal programs where you're getting money, the big thing, no double dipping. You can't use the same wages that you use for PPP as an example with ERC. And I'll give you a really quick example on this. I got my PPP on April 15th of 2020. I used it as of August 1st of 2020. I would exclude those wages from employee retention credits. I would then take all the other wages in the period that I was eligible, and I would apply those to employee retention credits. The cap on wages is $10,000. And so for 2020, I can get 50% up to $10,000, so $5,000 per employee. In 21, they change it. It's $7,000 as a maximum. So still the $10,000 max. So it's 70% up to $10,000 or $7,000 per quarter per eligible employee.
Wow.
So that's why I said in the beginning, 26,000, and really it's 5,000 from 2020. And for the first 3 quarters of 21, it's $21,000. So in combination, it's 26,000.
So why aren't people talking about this more? Like we all talked about PPP, we all got it, but I feel like this is like a little bit of a secret almost.
Yeah, we got our PPP money, and what do we do as business owners? We get back to business and we are trying to grow our business, and we're not thinking about these potential credits. And that's a big area that we're missing as employers. As an example, there are more credits than just employee retention credits. So there are worker opportunity tax credits that are out there. There are federal credits that are out there. If I were to start a 401k and I have less than 100 employees, I can get up to a $5,500 credit per the first 3 years of my plan. That would pay for the administration of a 401k plan. So if I'm doing a training for all of my staff in Massachusetts, as an example, I can go to workforce training and potentially get a grant. So there's money out there for employers that they need to think outside of the box and do a little research. And really, it's so important that they contact people that can help them with this.
Yeah, I mean, you have an incredible knowledge base of information on this. So before we wrap, can you tell everyone a little bit about your business and how you guys help companies?
Sure. Yeah, so our business is human capital management. So it really starts from the hiring of a prospective employee to onboarding the employee, to enrolling them in benefits, to capturing all their time through time and attendance, processing their payroll, tracking all of their HR needs, tracking their performance and management, and it can go right down into COBRA administration on the end of the employment. So we handle the entire gamut for employers. One of the things that is really cool about our company is that we're nimble and we're able to help employers. And one of the things I'm really proud of our team is that we were able to, within basically 3 to 4 weeks, completely mobilize a team to help our clients with employee retention credits. We saw the opportunity out there for our clients, and we're able to really, on a dime, go ahead and offer this service and get money very quickly for employers when they needed it most. So I'm really proud of our team for being able to accomplish that.
And for you, seeing the opportunity is very exciting. So you're not an accountant?
No.
Okay. So you have a lot of information that I think people would normally go to an accountant for, but can they come to you to solve this problem?
Yeah. So one of the things I think that's really important as we move forward is having a trusted business advisor. The thing I think I've learned as a business owner, and I think many business owners have learned during this pandemic, is that it is critically important to have a great CPA, a trusted CPA. It's really important to have a great payroll HCM provider so that they can provide all this documentation that you need. It's super important that you have a great banking relationship. You need an unbelievable lending relationship. In 2022, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm guessing interest rates are going to start to move in the direction of 2-3%, et cetera. When interest rates move, what do we need? We need more credit. We need more flexibility to do our business, to run our business. So having a great banking relationship, and we saw that with PPP, many businesses struggled getting the PPP, and a lot of the local providers did an amazing job with it.
Yeah, I remember when I started my business, that was one of the first things I was told. I mean, I didn't go to business school. I'd never heard anything like that, but it was really important. And I know when we were with like a large bank, and then I moved to, it's called M&T here in Philadelphia. And I can text my banker, like, you know what I'm saying? Like we hang out. So it's totally different. And when PPP was happening and I was like really melting down, he was there to kind of be like, yes, we're here's where we're at. It was a very important relationship. So any final thoughts you want to share with our business community?
Yeah, certainly. We're here to help in any way we can. We have an ERTC page on epaybiz.com. So you can go to epaybiz.com/ERTC. You can put your information in, hit send, and we'll get back to you and schedule a meeting to talk about your particular situation, see if there's credits out there for the businesses. It's really important. It's very undersubscribed, as I had said. And if you're eligible, let's get after this money so that you can continue to grow and expand your business.
Awesome. And besides that link, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so You can reach us at ertc@epaybiz.com. You can certainly reach me at Brendan, Brendan, at epaybiz.com. And really, since March 15th of 2020, I've done nothing but try to help businesses and have high-level business conversations with owners on the situation that they're running into. I think we all had to really be nimble and try to navigate the waters together. And so it's been a fun experience as a CEO to go through this period of time, even though it's been tough on businesses.
Well, we're grateful to have people like you that care to look into these things and present them as solutions, because we're all so busy running our businesses that, it's easy to just miss this huge opportunity that we've probably never seen from the government, like something like this before.
And I'm not sure we're ever going to see it again. So, you have actually up to 3 years to retroactively go back and claim these credits. So, I think it's important to get out in front of it as quickly as you can, but there's still some time for employers.
Amazing. Well, thank you for educating us and sharing your wisdom and being a great resource to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the service that you provide ePay and to all of your customers. The growth you've had in your business is unbelievable, and your vision and leadership is really inspiring. So thank you for what you do. And as I said, your team is an extension of what we do every single day, and so valuable to us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brendan. It's great chatting today. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.